The world's largest ticket seller is being sued by the U.S. Justice Department. We'll tell you why the U.S. Attorney General says it's time to put an end to a Ticketmaster monopoly. Former President Trump campaigning in one of the bluest counties in the country today. We asked locals in the Bronx in New York City what they think about Trump. Senate Democrats pushed for a second vote on a border bill deemed dead on arrival by Republicans, and House Republicans overturn a 2022 law that allowed non-citizens to vote in D.C. Republican Nikki Haley says she'll vote for Trump, this despite previously attacking the former president's stances numerous times. We talked to a reporter who interviewed Haley to find out what this means for voters. France is deploying 3,000 security forces in New Caledonia to restore order amid ongoing unrest. Meanwhile, the nation's parliament says China and TikTok may have played a significant role in spreading the violence. Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Chris Beers. The nation's premier live event ticketing company is being sued by the feds. Attorney General Merrick Garland says Ticketmaster and its parent company Live Nation are running an illegal monopoly. Garland says the company's actions are stamping out the competition and driving higher ticket prices for customers.
The lawsuit, filed in Manhattan this morning, alleges that Live Nation uses unlawful, anti-competitive tactics to monopolize control over the live events industry in the United States at the cost of fans, artists, smaller promoters, and venue operators. The suit was filed by the U.S. Justice Department together with 30 state and district attorneys general. Garland says it's time to break up the Live Nation monopoly.
We allege that to sustain this dominance, Live Nation relies on unlawful, anti-competitive conduct to exercise its monopolistic control over the live events industry in the United States and over the fans, artists, independent promoters, and venues that power the industry.
Live Nation says the claims that they violate antitrust laws are untrue. The company was under a federal investigation in 2022. At that time, Ticketmaster stated the company enjoys such a large share of the market because its ticketing system is better than the closest competition. However, competing ticket sellers have complained that Live Nation makes it difficult for them to disrupt the market. The sellers say Live Nation has always used antitrust practices, like withholding acts if those venues don't agree to use Ticketmaster's service. Ticketmaster merged with Live Nation in 2010. Virginia Gibson, NTD News.
In an effort to strengthen ties with African nations, President Biden is hosting Kenya's President William Ruto at the White House today. The two are discussing a number of issues, including trade, investment, technology, climate, and energy. Biden has designated Kenya as a major non-NATO ally, the first in sub-Saharan Africa.
Together, the United States and Kenya are working to deliver on the challenges that matter most to our people's lives: health security, economic security, cyber security, and climate security.
This state visit, a sign of friendship and partnership and collaboration between two countries that share common values, values of freedom, democracy, rule of law, equality, and inclusivity. We are very proud democratic nation. And today,
Ruto noted the talks will address how we can have a fairer international financial system where all countries are treated equally. Ruto visited China in February, seeking out more loans to complete infrastructure projects in the East African nation. Kenya is heavily in debt to the Chinese communist regime. Its debt to GDP ratio is 70%, with the majority of that owed to China. Ruto's visit includes a state dinner this evening, tours of the White House, and a visit with Vice President Kamala Harris on Friday. The U.S. and Kenya are marking their 60th anniversary of diplomatic relations. Former President Trump is holding a rally in New York City later this afternoon. It's a unique location considering the state hasn't backed a Republican presidential candidate in 40 years. NTD's Jack Bradley is on site.
While finishing up his New York civil fraud trial, former President Donald Trump's holding a rally right here in the middle of blue New York City, here at South Bronx at this park, Crotona Park. It's one of the most impoverished areas in the county and one of the most diverse. We spoke to many rally goers here on why they support Trump. Take a listen.
At the end of the day, Donald Trump is just a kid from Queens, so this is his home. He was the king of New York for 30 years, and New York hasn't been very friendly to him, but now I think that a lot of the people are coming out and they're saying that, Donald, you're welcome here anytime.
I live in North Carolina. I drove about 9 hours to be here. I've been to over 40 rallies. We're with the Front Row Joes. We're with the big, fairly big group.
I feel like Joe Biden is pandering to the young people by trying to eliminate their student loan debt so they can vote for him. Me, as an individual who didn't go to college, I still pay taxes. I have to, don't I? And my tax dollars are going to pay for people with college degrees who are getting their student loan debt forgiven. I feel that Donald Trump, his policies don't compromise, and I think that's clear because he's getting attacked politically by both sides, the establishment conservatives and also the liberal media, and he's still standing firm with his policies.
How has the economy impacted you under President Biden?
So our taxes are up. We can't afford the food in our homes. We can't afford, even if you want to take a day off of work, you can't do that. The state taxes are ridiculous. We can't purchase things for our children the way we used to. We're working more hours a week with nothing to show for it. Gas prices are ridiculous. Families are just struggling. Electric is up, heat is up. We can't afford it. We just can't. This man has literally destroyed America. While he's too busy giving our money to all these illegals, allowing illegals to come into this country, what about the people here?
Everyone's waking up. They see what's going on. They see what Trump did. And you know what? If Biden wasn't in office, we didn't realize how good Trump did.
And at the same time, various labor and civil rights groups are holding a counter rally down the street, saying that former President Trump is not welcome here, but neither is President Biden. Reporting from the Bronx, New York, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
We will have more on Trump's Bronx rally and NTD Evening News with Tiffany Meyer at 6 p.m. Eastern. Next, Nikki Haley says she'll vote for Trump. This during her first public appearance since dropping out of the GOP primary. NTD's Fiona G. speaks to Epoch Times reporter Jackson Richmond to find out more about what this means for voters and the upcoming election.
So, Jackson, before her exit from the presidential race, Nikki Haley was actually very outspoken about her opinion on Trump, at one point even calling him a disaster for the Republican Party. But now we see that she's really changing tune and proclaiming for her support for him. What caused this change in attitude?
Good afternoon, Fiona. It wasn't a matter of if, but when Nikki Haley would come out in support of President Trump. She said at the Hudson Institute yesterday, which was her first public appearance since suspending her campaign in March, that while she has not agreed with Trump on policy, at the end of the day, she wants a president that will not add to the national debt and who will stand with our allies. And while she has her differences with Trump, she said that Biden would be a, quote, catastrophe.
And so what do these latest developments tell us about the situation within the GOP right now?
The situation within the GOP is split between those who support President Trump and those who do not, or they support Nikki Haley. Some Haley supporters are considering, or they will be, voting for President Biden, while other Haley supporters have said that they will not vote for Biden or Trump.
And in terms of policy, many Republican contenders, including Haley, have said that they believe that Trump is too old to be president. But other than the age issue, it seems that we've seen that most GOP primary contenders' policies were pretty in line with Trump's America First policies. Now, I know that you've interviewed Haley before. What impression did you have of her ideas? Were they in line with Trump's?
When I interviewed Nikki Haley last year, she had mixed views. Some of her views are in line with President Trump. So, as an example of where she agrees with President Trump, border security, the culture war issues, such as combating wokeism in America's schools. Now, where she differs from President Trump is on issues such as entitlement reform and foreign policy.
And one last question, considering all of this, why do you think that Trump isn't picking her as VP?
Trump has said that Haley is not under consideration for VP, but he hasn't ruled it out entirely. I talked with Congressman Ralph Norman of South Carolina yesterday. He was the first member of Congress and one of the few lawmakers to endorse Nikki Haley's presidential run, and he said that he has been constantly talking to President Trump, urging him to pick Nikki Haley as his running mate so that he can get the entire GOP pretty much to come out in support of him.
All right, Jackson, thank you so much for your insight. It was great talking to you.
Thanks, Fiona.
The hatred of Jewish people on college campuses has increasingly become a problem ever since the October 7th attacks by Hamas. Today, Congress is yet again probing anti-Semitism on college campuses.
Over the course of years, decades even, universities gradually nurtured a campus culture of radicalism in which anti-Semitism grew and became tolerated by administrators.
Presidents from several schools testified at today's hearing. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle grilled them about anti-Israel protests and how the schools respond to anti-Semitic incidents and attacks. The president of Northwestern University was also asked about sending students' fees to the Arab country of Qatar.
Do you think it would be a good idea for the University of Northwestern to partner with a government that harbors terrorist Hamas and Iranian operatives who fund terrorism? Yes or no?
I'm not going to engage in yes or no answers.
Obviously, you don't have a problem with that.
Other lawmakers questioned the president of Northwestern about incidents where students have allegedly been attacked on his campus. He says those cases are being investigated. Next, troops who were fired for refusing a COVID-19 vaccine may be rehired. The House Armed Services Committee adopted an amendment last night that would force the Pentagon to rehire them. The bill is titled the Service Member Quality of Life Improvement and National Defense Authorization Act. Congresswoman Nancy Mace says the measure would direct the Pentagon to develop a strategy to recruit from the thousands of service members who were dismissed. According to the Pentagon, military services collectively missed recruiting goals by about 41,000 recruits in 2023. And 3,000 security personnel have been deployed in the French territory of New Caledonia to control unrest. The violence over the past 2 weeks may have been fueled by foreign interference, according to the French government. The Senate has launched an investigation into TikTok's role in the spreading of the unrest. NTD's France correspondent David Vivez has the details.
6 people have died in the violence that struck New Caledonia over the past 2 weeks, including 4 civilians and 2 military personnel. The recent violence, which erupted on May 13th, has deep roots in the long-standing tensions between the indigenous Kanak population and other residents. However, French authorities have denounced the major role of foreign influence, coming notably from Russia and China. Members of parliament said to national media that the matter is so serious, France could potentially lose New Caledonia. Senators addressed the issue on Wednesday evening at the Senate.
Talking about interferences, there's an organization that openly engages in foreign interference, and this is the Embassy of the People's Republic of China.
Russia, Azerbaijan, China. These 3 allied powers have the same desire to destabilize France and exploit its resources in the archipelago, particularly nickel. And why not lay their hands on other French territories?
Macron, who has previously mediated between pro-independence and pro-France factions, reiterated France's dedication to maintaining stability. Macron's visit follows the deployment of an additional 3,000 French security personnel to the territory. The French government have also indicated that Chinese social media platform TikTok played an important role in how the unrest spread throughout the country.
I have asked the European Commission to take action against TikTok. In Nouméa, the government clearly understood the major role played by TikTok in spreading the riots and has decided to suspend it.
Senators and members of parliament have voted for additional measures, including an investigation into foreign interferences threatening national security. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
When we come back, Senate Democrats push for a second vote on a border bill deemed dead on arrival by Republicans, and House Republicans overturn a 2022 law that allowed non-citizens to cast votes in D.C. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez brings us the latest.
The highest art is beautiful, breathtaking, timeless, and moving. Experience art with 5,000 years of history, inspired by the divine. Experience Shen Yun.
The glory of piano masterpieces from the Baroque, Classical, and Romantic periods. New Tang Dynasty Television invites you to join the 2024 NTD International Piano Competition. Together, we preserve and revitalize the art of authentic classical piano music. October 14th to the 19th at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Apply now at piano.ntdtv.com.
Hi, folks. Do you trust this economy? What if you could receive a strong fixed rate of return that's not correlated to the stock market or the Fed? And what if you were in control? You could turn your income on or off, compound it, whatever you choose. What if your interest was compounded daily, you were paid monthly, and there were absolutely no fees? And what if you could have peace of mind because there was no attack on your principal if you ever needed your money back? Well, folks, there is an investment with all of these features. Investors all over the country are earning a high fixed rate of return with Y-Refi, and they don't care about what happens with the stock market or the Fed. And best of all, they receive their statement every month with no surprises. Would you like some more information? Just call 877-80-INVEST. That's 877-80-INVEST. Or log on to investyrefi.com. That's investyrefi.com. Y-Refi, do well by doing good.
My dad's name was David. He always talked about getting life insurance, and now it's too late.
No one was expecting my husband Dave to suffer from a heart attack. We didn't have life insurance. We thought we had more time.
Don't be Dave, and don't wait until it's too late to get the life insurance coverage you need. And if you don't have enough insurance to cover funeral costs, credit card debt, and other expenses, your family is going to get stuck with the bill. Call now to get affordable life insurance.
Just call 800-494-1562.
If you're over 50, you can't be turned down for this insurance, regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam, no health questions. Your rate will never go up. Your coverage will never go down. And rates start as low as $5 a week. Remember, don't be Dave. Call now.
Call now. 800-494-1562.
Welcome back. House Republicans voted on Thursday to pass legislation that prohibits non-citizens from voting in the District of Columbia. That while the Democratic-led Senate teed up a second vote on a border bill described by Republicans as dead on arrival. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Martinez, joins us now live from Capitol Hill. Luis, what can you tell us about this bill, and what does the result of today's vote tell us about election laws going forward?
Of course, Chris, yes, today the House of Representatives passed H.R. 192, a bill that would prohibit non-citizens from voting in local elections in the District of Columbia. It is important to note that over 50 Democrats joined Republicans in voting in favor of this bill, despite House Democratic leadership urging its conference to vote against it. Earlier today, I spoke with Congressman Adriano Espaillat, the Democrat from New York, and he argued that the bill was pure political messaging from Republicans. Let's listen.
What's your position on allowing non-citizens to vote in states like California, Vermont, Maryland?
For municipal elections, it's been done in the past, as late as in the 30s. People that pay taxes, that in New York City, it was done for the New York City school boards. So this is not a new concept. I don't understand why people are getting all bent out of shape about it. This has been around in America since the 1930s.
I do respect the sovereignty of the people of the District of Columbia, but where does it start and where does it end? So if you're able as a non-citizen to vote, does that mean non-citizens can hold public office? So it's troubling to go in that area. So I do understand that. So I respect D.C., but I would like to see American citizens be returned back to the rolls first. Prioritize getting American citizens.
So there we heard first Congressman Adriano Espaillat, Democrat from New York, arguing that this bill is nothing new, that Americans have been able to, non-citizens have been able to vote in local elections since the 80s, since the 90s, most notably in the states of California, Vermont, and Maryland. And the second soundbite that we listened was Congressman Jonathan Jackson, the Democrat from Illinois, and he had a different version. Even though he was a colleague Democrat of Adriano Espaillat, he supported those who voted in favor of this bill. Now, Chris, it's important also to note that this bill is unlikely to be picked up in the Senate.
Yeah, and speaking of the Senate, what can you tell us about that border bill vote that took place today?
Of course, so back in February, Senators Kristen Cermak, Chris Murphy, and James Langford presented a bipartisan border security bill. It passed the Senate floor with Republican Democratic support, but Republicans in the House called it dead in arrival last February. Now, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer wanted to reintroduce this same bipartisan border security bill that had already failed in the past. There was a procedural vote this Thursday, and it once again failed, this time in the Senate floor. And interestingly enough, it lost Democratic support from the last vote back in February. So there will be no reconsideration as of today of this bipartisan border security bill. But it does seem that there has been some political messaging bills having Democrats vote in favor of this border security bill today, even though that it won't be reconsidered at all. Back to you, Chris.
Luis Martinez, thank you. Some T-Mobile customers will see a price increase in their service plans. Here's NTD's Don Ma with today's Business Matters.
Thank you, Chris. U.S. Secretary Janet Yellen said today that she wants market-driven countries to present a wall of opposition to China over its state-driven industrial policies. This is a key issue that she is pushing at a G7 finance meeting this week. So Yellen said that many countries beyond the G7 advanced industrial democracies were concerned about China's overinvestment in electric vehicles, solar products, semiconductors, steel, and other strategic industries. So those countries, including Mexico, India, and South Africa. And she's arguing that without changes in Chinese policy, including a shift from increasing production to boosting domestic demand, Yellen said market-driven economies face a flood of cheap exports from China that will threaten the viability of their manufacturers. At the same time, Yellen also told a news conference that she is looking for general agreement on the concept from G7 finance ministers and central bank governors on a plan to bring forward the earnings from some $300 billion in frozen Russian assets that could provide Ukraine with significant financial support beyond 2025. Okay, moving on from that. T-Mobile is raising its prices on some of its phone plans. Some customers will receive a $5 hike per phone line every month on their phone bills. The company confirmed its price increase on X, saying it's, quote, adjusting prices to respond to rising costs. And select customers will either see a $2 or $5 increase as early as June. Okay, Chris, that's all from me. Back to you.
Now we're turning to a $600 million settlement for the Norfolk Southern derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. A judge has given preliminary approval. The 2023 disaster spewed more than 1 million pounds of hazardous chemicals into the soil, water, and air. It also displaced many residents and businesses. The settlement to resolve all lawsuits related to the train crash was proposed last month. It covers thousands of residents within 20 miles of the derailment. Norfolk Southern didn't admit to any liability or wrongdoing in this settlement. A hearing for final approval is set for September 25th. Lawmakers said they will meet community members over the coming weeks and months to answer questions about the settlement. They will also address how people can submit claims to receive compensation. And the European Space Agency has released stunning new images taken by the Euclid Space Telescope. These remarkable views of the cosmos could help scientists hunt for rogue planets, study mysterious dark matter, and explore the evolution of the universe. The ESA observed 17 astronomical objects, from nearby clouds of gas and dust to distant clusters of galaxies. The agency says the images are at least 4 times sharper than those taken from ground-based telescopes. Over 6 years, Euclid will survey 1/3 of the sky, pinpointing locations of galaxies up to 10 billion light-years away. Scientists hope to gain insight into the dark energy and dark matter that make up most of the universe. That's all. Thank you so much for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Chris Beers. See you tomorrow.
We are only 80 years removed from countries that killed 60 to 70 million people intentionally. And we have people being like, oh, it can't happen here. Yeah, it can, and it might.
These people, they're not interested in the facts. They're not interested in anything except crushing people that are in their way.
There needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members.
A strong church